update on Michael Saylor saying that he's going to sell his Bitcoin. The never sell your Bitcoin guy is now talking about selling his Bitcoin. And I personally think that is absolutely amazing, okay? I think it's going to be better for MicroStrategy. I think it's going to be better for Bitcoin and everyone else. This whole concept of never sell your Bitcoin, just buy and hold and hoard it is very dragon-like. You know, if you know from mythology, dragons are often associated, I mean, the really good example is The Hobbit, but they're associated with coming in and basically stealing or hoarding piles of gold. And then they have their caves and they have this big pile of gold that they hang out in there. And, you know, the knights and everyone go and try to kill the dragon so they can get the riches. But the dragon, what it does is it represents unbounded greed. And it represents unbounded greed in a specific way where you are greedy so much so that you result to hoarding, right? And the problem with hoarding money, and this is one of the lessons, is that money loves speed, money loves to move, money loves momentum, it loves to change hands. Right? Because when you're doing that, you're producing value, you're exchanging value, and when you're constantly doing that, right, it makes you and everyone else around you better when you do it strategically, right? I'm not saying just blow money, but it's like the difference between, a way to think about it is the difference between a pond that doesn't have water flow and you see all the algae and it's just gross, versus a pond or a lake that has streams flowing in and out of it, has movement. And with that movement comes life, right? That stale pond, you know, the fish die, not much lives in it. I mean, there's things that live in there, but it's kind of gross and right? Stagnant water, bacteria, brain-eating amoebas are all in there, versus when you have a freshwater lake, where you have streams and rivers flowing in and out of it, especially the fresher the water, like the better, more fun, desirable it is to hang out and be around it. It looks good, it smells good, it's great. Same thing with money, okay? You have, and especially Bitcoin, you have people that just want to hoard their Bitcoin or just want to hoard their gold or their silver. And it's all well and good, you know, get some, have some that you have on the side that you use to protect your energy and your wealth. But if that's all you're doing and you're not spreading it out, there's a real risk of you turning into that dragon, you turning into that pond with that stagnant water, and it just starts to pollute your mind, right? You're always stressed about who's going to get your Bitcoin, what are you doing with it, how do you get more, that greed, and you're not actually contributing anything. You start to shift from producing value to just hoarding value. And I think that's what was a route that was important for when Bitcoin's just getting started, okay? But anymore, for Bitcoin to actually fulfill its potential, to actually be a useful and valuable asset in the global marketplace, Bitcoin has to move. It has to exchange hands. It has to be used to purchase things. It has to be used as collateral. It's got to be used on balance sheets of one company, and companies fail, then it has to be bought up by other companies, right? We want that to happen with Bitcoin. We don't want it to be this massive just, hey, I'm going to hoard on to this as long as possible so the price is going to skyrocket, and then I'm going to use that leverage over you. You don't necessarily want that, so you want companies doing that. And so MicroStrategy has took the position and strategy from when they started buying Bitcoin 6 years ago. They really started, they announced, I think, in the fall of 2020. So when they started buying Bitcoin like 6 years ago, they had the position of never sell your Bitcoin. And that was a good strategy at that point in time, and it served them actually pretty well. However, there's a lot of volatility in the market, and as the financial instruments around Bitcoin and the sophistication around the investors, the trading desks, the strategies around Bitcoin have grown and evolved, just simply buying and holding Bitcoin and hoping the price goes up, right? In MicroStrategy's case, using the Bitcoin as collateral to basically get more loans in which they use to buy more Bitcoin, because the amount of Bitcoin they're buying isn't sustainable based upon the cash flow of their business. That model, as a lot of people more sophisticated than I have commented that it's unsustainable, okay? And so hearing Michael Saylor come out, especially at this point in time where we're at this weird inflection point in the Bitcoin cycle, right? Are we going to reverse and go back to all-time highs, right? We're going to break out of this bear cycle, or are we going to actually go and put in more new lows? We're really at this interesting inflection point now and over the next 3 months. So to have him come out and say this, right? Because he said in an interview that he would be open to selling Bitcoin. And I made another video about this, talking about how I think it's a smart move, right? Michael Saylor's not dumb. He's not, it's not like he's not loyal to Bitcoin and the cause. And it's not like he's not loyal to his business and doesn't want people to succeed and doesn't want his business and shareholders to succeed. He definitely wants that. And he's created a bunch of financial instruments like Strike to help investors and institutions get access and exposure to Bitcoin in ways that maybe they are more comfortable with, or in ways that give them more upside without some of the other traditional Bitcoin friction points. So he's done all that, and he's done a really good job, for better, or better or worse, for all the criticism that he's had. He's been a really vocal, outspoken person in the space, and I highly recommend you go and listen to his interviews if you haven't. But enough like fully praising Michael Saylor, but let's get into some of the stuff he said. So this is from the Block article. So let me just like flip this around and you can see. Okay, so we're on the Block article. Get back here. Okay, so then let me just reject those cookies. So it says, let's see here. Michael Saylor says Strategy would buy 10 to 20 Bitcoin for every one it sells. Okay, here's the report. So he recently said in an interview that the company would replenish any Bitcoin it sells with 10 to 20 more Bitcoin. During Strategy's earnings call last week, Saylor said the firm will consider tapping its Bitcoin holdings to fund Strike STRC dividends. Okay, and he said that the company will buy far more Bitcoin than it sells, as it considers tapping its Bitcoin holdings to fund dividends for its STRC perpetual preferred stock program. And so in multiple interviews released over the weekend, Saylor said that while the company occasionally will sell a portion of its Bitcoin holdings, any such sales would quickly be outpaced by new purchases. In these periods, even if we were to sell 1 Bitcoin, we'd be buying 10 to 20 more Bitcoin. You should be a net accumulator of Bitcoin. When I said never sell your Bitcoin, I mean make sure if you were to spend it on something, you replenish it in the time you spend it. You don't want to be a net seller of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is capital. You want to end every year with more Bitcoin than you started the year before. Okay, and so he said all that, and the big question is, hey, when to sell? My MicroStrategy says that he would be selling Bitcoin to fund Strike dividend payments when doing so is more accretive to our shareholders, specifically with Bitcoin per share. And he says, I believe in math over ideology. This is the CEO, Phong Lee. He believes in math over ideology, and at the point where selling Bitcoin versus selling equity to pay a dividend is better for our Bitcoin per share and for our common shareholders, we will do it. Okay, so that's what they said in the article, and I think it's a brilliant move. This is something that I've advocated for a long time, that this simplistic HODL mentality, it's great when you're first getting started. It's great to keep things simple. And for some people, hey, that's the strategy that they're going to use. But when you're acquiring so much Bitcoin, basically with all your capital coming in, you have to be like, okay, well, what money are we going to spend? You have to find money to spend. And so for a normal person, to relate this to you, what MicroStrategy is basically doing is all the money that you get from your job, they're buying Bitcoin with it. All the money minus like their normal basic living expenses, and then they're going basically out and applying for credit cards for interest rates, and they're taking all that money and then buying Bitcoin with that as well. Okay, so that'd be like you doing that in your personal life. Not necessarily the smartest thing unless you have a sophisticated financial strategy in place. But the thing is when I think about Bitcoin and acquiring Bitcoin, and what they're talking about is be a net acquirer of Bitcoin versus a net seller of Bitcoin, it doesn't mean you can't sell your Bitcoin. It doesn't mean you can't use your Bitcoin for things. If I had Bitcoin, right? So if I had Bitcoin, I would, I think I sold it before. I'll just say, you should never really tell anyone if you have Bitcoin or how much you have. But I say that kind of just as a lesson, but I have sold Bitcoin for things. I've bought things with Bitcoin. I've given people Bitcoin. I've paid for goods and services with Bitcoin, okay? But over time, my Bitcoin stack has grown. Now, you can be really sophisticated with this, or you can be just kind of casual with it. The best thing is that you are consistently growing your Bitcoin stack. And it gives you a lot more flexibility when you take off the handcuffs of never selling and think, okay, how can I strategically sell Bitcoin? Okay, Not like, how can I dump it all? Like some people, they get Bitcoin, they buy it, they hold it, it goes up in value, they sell everything, now they don't have any Bitcoin. I had conversations with friends about that. It's like, hey, this is like your only asset you have. Why would you want to sell this all to like pay off your credit card bill? Now, you should pay off your credit card bills but if there's other means available for that. Okay. And so for Strategy, I mean, they're a company, for them to add in the flexibility that, hey, there are certain times in which we can sell Bitcoin if it's a net benefit to our shareholders. That's great. And of course, they have smart people, serious people, professionals looking at their finances, looking at the market, trading Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin, seeing what type of value it does for their company. Right? They have people all managing that. So having Strategy now be a more dynamic business in the marketplace, I think is better for everyone, because before people were like, hey, you're just going to acquire Bitcoin. That's because that's basically what you said. And so if you do anything that isn't just acquiring Bitcoin, we're going to call you out on it. We're going to trade against it. Now, Strategy can be like, hey, we have, multiple tricks up our sleeve. We might be buying some. Actually, sometimes we might be selling it. You're going to have to pay closer attention, and they have more levers they can pull for their financial strategy for their business, which ultimately I think is a better thing for them. It's a better thing for their investors. It's a better thing for the Bitcoin market. I think it's a better thing for everyone all the way around, as long as they do it correctly, right? And I say with the caveat, like kind of jokingly, like it actually doesn't matter if MicroStrategy does it correctly or not. If you believe in Bitcoin and you think that it has potential, I think you should have the belief that, hey, it doesn't actually matter if what one company does. Like MicroStrategy could completely fail, have to sell all their Bitcoin, and Bitcoin as the network, right? It should be just fine. Sure, you'll have supply, you'll have panic and all this kind of stuff, but that's a tremendous opportunity if you actually believe in some of the core principles and theses around what Bitcoin is and what it can do. You're like, great, it's on a discount. Thank you, MicroStrategy, for blowing up. Now I can acquire more for less money, right? And if you believe in it, and if you trust your research, you're like, hey, well, that's great, because now I'm in a position, so when it inevitably goes back up, right, I'm going to be better off. Thank you for the gift, MicroStrategy. If they were to fail, or any of these companies that are playing in the Bitcoin game were to fail, that's always the thing. So just to conclude here, Michael Saylor, of course, has to clarify his comments on never selling Bitcoin. I think that it is ultimately a good thing that they add this into how they operate their business. I think they probably had to in general. Do I think you should worry about it? No, but I think you should pay attention to this, right? Pay attention to what MicroStrategy is doing, the times in which they might be selling versus the times in which they're acquiring. It might allow you to geek out and learn a little bit more about how they work, what's going on, what the markets are doing, which ultimately I think is a better thing. If you can be plugged in, you just are more educated and aware and have a better pulse on the cycle. So when it comes time to making decisions, hey, am I going to buy? Am I going to sell? Am I going to hold? Am I not? Right? You have more education and data points to support those decisions, which I think will make it better off for you. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Is it a good idea that MicroStrategy is selling? Are they selling because they're desperate, or because that they're going to collapse if they don't? Or do you think it's part of a more strategic plan that's actually healthy overall and not detrimental to Bitcoin and MicroStrategy? So that's it for now. Subscribe and follow along for more.